Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome back.
Welcome. This is episode 39 of We All Have Stuff. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for continuing this journey with us.
So, today we wanted to talk about,
We want to talk about why we repeat the same patterns over and over again.
yes,
But I
okay.
would say with that, I like to kind of define it as why do you end up feeling the same way and the same patterns? This either whether I know we're talking about relationships, but a lot of times it just feels the same.
Yeah, so similar relationship dynamics. Why do we continue to go back to things that feel familiar, that even if we know that they're not good for us?
Right. So
So,
with that, I would say I think the general principle that we all might know is it's comfortable,
mm-hmm,
right? But
yeah,
I think a lot of times in psych world, we're trying to at least shine light. Not that this makes it easier until you start working on it, but shine light of family stuff and
mm-hmm,
history and why certain relationships present day
yeah,
feel familiar because they feel like you know them, like you feel like, oh, this is how my family was, or this is how, and it
right,
doesn't mean your family dynamic was particularly healthy, but you fell into a pattern with your family, so you do the same thing with a partner because it feels similar and familiar and comfortable, and that's what you've always done. And
yeah,
even if you know, I don't like this or it's unhealthy, it still just feels normal.
right. Yeah, I think, novelty is scary, right? So even if we know going from one friendship or one relationship to another, we don't want to repeat bad habits and we don't want to repeat like the toxic dynamics or anything like that. But it's like, okay, this time is going to be different. It feels so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes like that's why as therapists, we always say like, it's okay to go outside of your comfort zone. It's okay to try something new because has what you've been doing worked for you? Usually the answer is no. So, what are some of the reasons? I think it's important to kind of understand the backstory so we can maybe give people ideas to think about, like, why does this sound so relatable to me? Why does this happen? Obviously, we like things that are familiar, but what are some things that you would encourage someone to look into if they keep coming back and saying, I lost another friendship, or my relationship didn't work out, I met a new guy and it didn't work out? How could we prompt some?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because a lot of times I think what people sometimes do, I would like to hear your perspective on this after,
Mm-hmm.
is, we're like, let me look at the red flags in the other person, which I definitely think we need to do, right? Because we avoid red flags or yellow flags.
Yep.
And then we're like, dang, like, I
Mm-mm-mm.
want to see the good in that person. But I think a lot of times what people don't, and I think that's what therapy does a lot for, or somebody who really works on themselves or is constantly questioning, why am I doing what I'm doing, is you're aware of your own
Sure.
red flags and yellow flags. Yeah, that person might have a red flag, but what do you usually do?
Yeah.
Right? Like if I give that example of me, I think me and you kind of have that in common of we talked about it in an episode where we love to, like, you feel bad for somebody and you want to cater to them and you
Yeah.
overextend yourself and you're like, I just have hope that there's like possibility there because they're such a good person, I want to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not aware of yourself and that pattern within yourself,
Yeah.
you start being that Captain Save a Ho in the next relationship, and then it feels familiar because you're like, why am I so exhausted and why am I so drained? Oh, I chose somebody that I felt was nice, and then I ended up feeling bad for them and feeling like I had to do everything.
Right.
And it feels the same, and it feels the same, and it's what I do, but it's
Yeah.
also what I'm programmed to do, so I fall into it. So
Right.
how do I realize that red flag about myself and start working on that within myself to say, is this relationship
Yeah.
going to work if I don't do my old pattern?
Sure. And yeah, like you said, I think that's what's so powerful about therapy because we turn everything inward and it's not just the day to day, what did the other person do to contribute to this mess? It's
Right.
what's my role in this? Did I tolerate things that I shouldn't have? Did I not see relationships are mutual, right? So what was my response to things that happened? Did I not set a boundary? Did I not walk away when I should have? And
Right.
you're reinforcing behavior. So, I think it also comes down to what you are used to and the way that what things you expect out of a relationship, right? If you expect someone to be comforting, if you expect them to be nurturing, but then what's your role on the receiving end of those things? How you latch on to someone is important to be aware of. You know, you're not going to be able to have a healthy give and take dynamic with everybody.
And I would say that's why it's important to really look at yourself because some of this stuff is not easy to figure out. So
Yeah.
when people are like, I don't know, but I'll be cautious next relationship,
Yeah.
and then you're like kind of aware of yourself. But even for me, when I think about some of the stuff
Hmm.
that I learned about myself, I would have never figured it out because it
Yeah.
wasn't, a lot of it just wasn't simple to get to. It was like, I caretake people, and I remember a therapist in a training once asked me, like, did you feel like you had to caretake your parents? And I was like, not really,
Yeah.
because they did take care of me. Like, I remember a therapist once asked me if I grew up in poverty, and it was really funny to me because I'm like, where did she get that? She's like, you're so worried about everybody else and you stress about everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, did you grow up in like poverty? Did you grow up having to like save your parents? And I'm like, I don't think so. My mom was super nurturing. And then eventually, the more I worked on it, I'm like, you know what? It wasn't in my face. My dad was just really constantly lived in stress. And I could feel his stress. So I didn't want to make things harder on him.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I felt that like, dad does so much for us
Hmm.
that just don't ask him for anything else. Don't put anything on his plate,
Right.
which ends up playing out present day. Like don't put something else on somebody else's plate. Figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Which in a relationship you want a give and take and you want somebody to help you. So I
Hmm.
think it's interesting in that sense to bring that up,
Yeah.
that a lot of times we're thinking, "Oh no, like I grew up in a great family, like nothing I
Yeah.
don't really do anything that's a toxic behavior or bad or
Hmm.
I'm not really unhealthy, but if you don't start really realizing like why do I feel the pull that I always have to do this
Yeah.
and get curious about your own history and maybe what has happened to
Right.
try to rewire that, you're just eventually just that's just naturally who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we see it a lot. I mean, obviously, we're both women. We see it a lot in women who
Yeah.
grew up in a nurturing environment, but where there were high expectations. Because when we go into a relationship, our needs are not met. It's prioritizing everyone else first, and we'll get there. The person will realize that I have needs. You know, the person will realize that I deserve a priority. And when it gets to the point that you have your needs unmet for so long, it's
Yeah.
kind of at a breaking point.
Right.
So at that point, okay, well, now I meet another person, and the other person seems really nice, and we're in that honeymoon stage of even a friendship, and
Yeah.
it just becomes like of convenience, right? You're always there for me, but I'm not always there for you. And
Right.
then you're like, okay, how did this happen to me again? It must be a me issue. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on that because I have friends and I also have, people that I work with that are like, yeah, it's always me. It must be something wrong with me. And the way that I reframe that is, well, I don't think it's a you problem. I think it's a you not advocating for yourself problem. It's not necessarily that there's a fundamental issue with the person, like, oh, well, all your friends leave you and they use you and then they move on to somebody else who's more fun or more convenient. I don't necessarily think it's always that there's a personality flaw. It's more like you allow yourself to be taken advantage of. And until
Right.
you learn to be strong and stand up for yourself, that you deserve more, that's going to keep happening.
Yeah, for sure. It's back to how do we ask for what we need and check in with ourselves? Like, how do I innately not put another person before myself every time?
Sure.
Like, you'll relate to this one. Like, Dr. Becky had said this, and I thought it was cool because she was talking about guilt
Mm-hmm.
and how moms have guilt.
Yeah.
And then she defines it as like, it's actually not guilt when you break it down because a lot of times she'll ask moms, hey, I feel guilty because I went out with my friends and my kids at home.
Right.
And she's like, well, guilt is something that you morally know it doesn't match your moral compass. So you feel
Right.
bad because you did a thing that's like, it's not in line with my moral compass. So she's like, when I ask moms, do you think it's okay to have kids and go and have friendships? And they
Yeah.
say, well, yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, well, then that's okay.
Right.
So you can't be like always blaming yourself, but you also have to advocate for what do I need in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking about relationship dynamics, no, I don't think it's a personality flaw.
Yeah.
I think it's we innately do things we've always done. And until we can say, you know what? No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Then we're just innately doing it in general. So I think it's just something we can work on. And I do think it's hard in relationships because as much as we teach people to look at themselves, it does take the other person.
Yeah.
And if the other person's not on board, that's where things get uncomfortable, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we ideally think, well, maybe if I just communicate my needs, I'll get them more.
Right.
And sometimes in a healthy, good, that's when you're going to know it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, this person's putting in effort, but sometimes it's not that case. You're like, oh, I'm the problem. So how do I communicate? If I now I communicate and
Yeah.
things aren't getting met, what do I do from there?
Right.
So that I'm not the problem anymore. I did my part.
Sure.
But then how do I walk away or know, okay, I have to have a next step. And I think that's where a lot of people stop though.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons is that we feel that this time is going to be it. This is the time that we can redo all of the wounds from old relationships. This is going to be the time that we can fix it, and we say something one time and it's all going to be better, and you wait and you hope and you wait and you hope and nothing changes. So at that point, that's, I think, where you need to make the decision. Am I going to continue with familiarity, and am I going to hope that this is going to be that time that makes me forget all the other times that it was awful?
Mm-hmm.
No,
I think
usually not.
that's the quote of like, just because something's comfortable doesn't mean you're happy.
Right.
It just makes it like it feels normal.
Mm-hmm.
But are you happy? A lot of times people are like, no, not really, but I don't know what else to do because if I change my dynamic, it's uncomfortable and anxiety because it's unknown.
Yeah.
So I rather stay in comfort even though it's like, ugh, I'm miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I read a little quote, and I like this one better. Unfamiliar heaven is worse than familiar hell, in a
Yeah.
lot of people's opinions. And when you think about it like that, you're like, but there's so much potential, right? That you
Mm,
don't know about it. But it's scary.
it's scary. I think the same as it's when we talked about divorce. We did our divorce episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Why is divorce scary? Not one person I've known that's gone through a divorce hasn't said, you know why I've stayed so long? Because the thought of losing everything I have
Mm-hmm.
and my life changing so drastically, me not knowing what it's going to look like and feel like is
Yeah.
so big that I've just stayed longer than I know I should have,
Right.
hoping that it would get better. Because who wanted? Because you're like, no, I don't know what my life looks like after this. And yeah,
Yeah.
in reality, it could be a lot better,
Sure.
but it's so unknown that unknown is always scary. And that's the hard part of normalizing emotions is how do you say, this is so scary. I have no idea what this looks like and I have to lean into it.
Yeah. But I think it's one of those things, like you said, it's hard to convince somebody that that's normal and that it's
Yeah.
okay to be afraid of something that could be really good for you. But you don't know until you dabble in it, and you kind of have to go through the really rocky part to get there because you've never seen it before. But, I think that familiar things can sometimes trigger you in a way where you have fears activated, and it's kind of like a full body, like, nervous system response. Like, yeah, that is a fear that I have. Is this fear, is this like nervous system activation, like excitement? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What is this like confusion that I have? I don't know if it's like chemistry.
Yeah.
And I think when you like look at it like that, it makes a lot of sense that it really reels you in, because emotions can be confusing, and you can be with someone who makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and you're like, oh, I don't know, like this is kind of interesting, let me see what happens with this. Is this like a deep rooted something that I have going on? Oh, but like I want more of that because I need to understand it. And
Right.
then but it's actually like, no, that was a warning, that was an alert.
Right. Right. I think like a question I ask a lot of people who I know, like I can feel do not want to be in their relationships, but look, and I get it because relationships are really hard because
Yeah.
there's that grief we've talked about, right? There's a grief of what you imagined, what you had together, like that's just such a hard thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when people are in like they're considering, they're like, I don't know if I want to be in my relationship. I just am not. I can't picture myself without this person.
Yeah.
They've been part of my life. I always am like, that's fine. Is everything that's going on right now sustainable longevity?
Yeah, that's the question.
Is this, and most of the time, people that when the people that are questioning it, like, no, I really just want a divorce and I'm just scared, they're like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. If nothing about your life and situation and relationship changed
Right.
right now, do
Would
you
you?
think you could at least stay in it and like it's manageable? Because I think that's where you get people at least curious of, is this doable? Like, if nothing changed, am I miserable? Or is it, there's a few things I don't like, but if nothing changed, I still wouldn't like be perishing in this the rest of my
Right.
life,
Yeah.
you know? And that gets people to open their eyes of,
Mm-hmm.
no, I can't be in this forever. So something eventually is going to have to change.
Right. And one thing that I talk to a lot of my divorce clients about, because they're like, well, I have stability. Stability is good, but
Define stability.
okay, yeah, and this is where I'm getting. Stability is good if it means that you have consistently positive, nourishing, enriching things in your life where there's no chaos. That's good. Is stability in toxicity good? Is stable chaos in your relationship good? Is stable mistreatment in your relationship good? No.
No.
So if that's what you're talking about, at least this person is predictable. I know that when they're bad, they're really bad, and when they're good, they're really good. That's not stability that we want to have you look for in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, I have financial stability. Is that enough when emotionally you're a wreck all the time?
Right.
Is you're not stable if you never know what version of the person you're going to get. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not reliant on them for everything. If you can't
Right.
be a person that you can go to for consistent reinforcement and validation and emotional security, that's not stability that you want just because you have a home and you have money.
Right.
So when you break that apart, then they're like, oh, yeah, like maybe this isn't really a stable thing. I can't sustain this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
and that's hard because even when you say like that's how you track a lot of relationship dynamics. Like
Mhm.
people say when we're bad, we're bad, but when we're good, we're really good. It's like, why is it so, it
Yeah,
shouldn't be so
there's
high and
no.
low. It's like it should be, we're pretty good most of the time, and then sometimes we fight and we're
Right.
not. And then so if you stay in this middle up and down, it's like more of like what you said, stable.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna fight, you're gonna argue, you're gonna go through hard times. Can you come together and figure it out? But when it's like honeymoon to everything's depleted, that's just, that exhaustion from that
Yeah.
is just, it's an attachment issue.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to go over like attachment styles because I think this is like a really trendy thing in like the
Hmm.
therapy world. So let's just go over that really
Hmm.
quickly to give everybody like a sense of what they are. And then I had a thought about this whole topic with like younger people who are in the dating world
Mm.
and some of the complaints that I get. So, okay, couple of attachment styles. I made some notes. So, we've got secure attachment. What does that look like for you when you're working with somebody? This is obviously like the best kind of attachment,
Yeah. I would
with
say that's just like your normal healthy parenting where you come from a house that's,
Mhm.
you know, they're gonna show up, which is healthy. A baby, your stereotypic baby cries, the mom goes and checks and tries to meet your needs, and
Yeah,
you eventually know if they leave, they're coming back. Like everything just feels secure and stable, and then you learn to trust.
right. So, as an adult, that translates into someone who has good boundaries, who has emotional safety, and who also is emotionally available for other people. You're not giving of yourself too much, but you're also not guarded. That sound right? Okay. So then we have anxious attachment. So this is where you get into those like dicey abandonment fears. You're kind of over giving of yourself because you want to make sure that the person doesn't leave you. And
Right.
you're compromising a lot for closeness.
Right.
So why is that bad in an adult friendship or intimate relationship?
Say anxious is really can be unhealthy because you start doing behaviors and things you don't really want to do,
Yeah.
but you're so worried that that person will leave that you sacrifice a lot
Yeah.
of your own emotional needs or health because you're so scared of that separation
Hmm.
that you'll do anything that so it's not there.
Right.
which when you're going to do anything, that's going to be detrimental to you because it's not gonna be that security like, oh, we can get in a fight and you're gonna come back. It's like, what do I have to do to get this person back? Because the feeling that I have when I'm alone is so scary
Yep.
that I just got to get back to like, we're good.
And I see this a lot in women that say, like, I throw myself at my man because otherwise he doesn't even give me the time of day. But I don't really like physical touch, is not my love language, but I do it anyway because that's the only time I get attention from him. And it's like, that is a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
You're violating kind of your own thresholds and boundaries to keep someone in your circle. But at the end, does that work? Like with this kind of attachment style, we see successful relationships if the other person is not knowledgeable about that?
Mm-mm.
No. So go to therapy. It will help you.
Go to therapy. And I think it's a hard one because,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's stuff I want to say, but I'll touch about it after.
Yeah.
I think the anxiety one's hard
Mm-hmm.
because you have to learn to sit in that anxiety and be okay with it. And in a healthy relationship, your partner will help you alleviate that anxiety.
Yeah.
They're not going to want you to give in. So I think that's a sign of telling if it's going to be a unhealthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, hey babe, this makes me anxious. When you're
Yeah.
away, when you go away for the weekend, I get anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a normal, okay thing, depending, you might have been through some stuff, you might have grown up in a family that something has happened, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know how to healthily communicate that and you're just aware of it, like, hey, I'm working on it, but I don't want to sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
If you're with a person who loves you, they're like, I got you. Like,
Yeah.
what do you need when I go away for the weekend? How about let's figure out, let's game plan. Do you need me to call you more? Do you want me to text you more? Do you want me to keep you in the loop?
Yeah.
And then you get to like, oh, okay, that might make me feel a little more secure now
Mm-hmm.
when I'm working through my anxious attachment of,
Right.
hey, babe, I'm in my head. Do you think you can give me a call? Yeah, I got you.
Right.
Hey, you're anxious? You come on, FaceTime me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. Everything's okay. And it's like that, you building that trust.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're with a partner who's like, I'm not willing to do that,
Yeah.
and you keep doing that anxious, then that's kind of like you're seeing what's going to cause healthy and what's going to cause not. Because
Right.
you need the other person to help you with that stuff. I think that's the scary part. You
Yeah.
can't be like, I have an attachment wound. I'm going to be with a person who's totally avoidant, which is
Right.
usually what you see in anxious with an avoidant.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that. So, avoidant attachment personalities are typically people who value being independent. They struggle when the attachment gets too close. They struggle with intimacy. And I'm going to be careful about saying that because I don't know. I don't want to say they struggle with intimacy in the sense that it's physical or emotional. I think it's just closeness overall and like being
Mm-hmm.
with one person with a high need for something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so those two tend to go together, and it's like a match made in hell, really, because the avoidant is going to say, "Hey, you have lots of needs. I'm out. Like I can't do that." But the anxious is going to say, "No, but please meet me where I am. I need you."
Right, and that's that dance
Hmm.
because an anxious and avoidant, which I will say, it doesn't have to be unhealthy.
No.
I think that's the hard part when we teach this to get it clear. Like, usually an anxious ends up with an avoidant because two anxious people
Never.
doesn't work out. Two
Yeah.
avoidant people aren't going to work out. So you usually
Right.
have either secure people or anxious and avoidant matching up. So it's like,
Right.
how do we work together? So
Hmm.
I can be less avoidant and you can be less anxious, and then we get a little more secure and healthy.
Right.
Or you're anxious and they're avoidant, and it ends up in the terrorist attack.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, which is awful.
Yeah.
So, and then there's also, I think this is probably the least common one. You have the fearful avoidant, which is that push and pull dynamic where they want to be close to somebody, but then they get really scared. And that's kind of where you get that I'm going to ghost somebody because I just don't know how to handle this. But then
Right.
I feel bad about it because I want somebody. So I'm refreshing my apps and I'm refreshing my texts and all of that because I need it, but I have a line.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? This pops in my mind. When they do these studies on babies and like forming attachment, I don't know if you've seen like
Hmm.
they when they put like, I don't know if they put a monitor or something on like the baby's hearts, but a baby who has such avoidant attachment, like you're used to like your mom leaves and never comes back, and you're
Yeah.
like, So I just have no emotions. I'm numb to it at this point. The heart rate, your heart, your physicality is still the same as an anxious person when you're an avoidant.
Yeah.
It's just the external factors are like shut off,
Going
and
down.
you're just like, I'm just used to this at this point. So you just, that's the way you cope with it. So I
Yeah.
always thought that was interesting. Your internally, it just shows you how much your body still stores trauma similar,
Yeah.
but you're just, the way you handle it is totally different.
Right. Which is, I mean, it is interesting, but I think that tells you a lot about personality development and, resilience factors and that kind of thing. So, definitely very relevant. I think it's important for people to look inward and see what kind of resonates with me. How do I latch onto people? What's my dynamic? What's my role in the dynamic? And what are my needs?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, yeah, so I wanted to circle back because I mentioned this earlier when you were talking. Something that I hear a lot with younger people who are dating or they just got out of a long relationship, they are always saying, like, all these people are so boring. These people are boring. Like, all these guys that I meet, they're just like, they're not interesting. And when you look at this kind of topic, for me, it's like, are they boring because they don't trigger something in you?
Right.
Is that safety? And safety feels very uninteresting.
Right. For sure. Because when things are like calm and good, especially if you're used to chaos or if you're used to super fun, then when something's normal and healthy,
Yeah,
you're like, why does this feel so different? And just, it's not excitement because your body's used to that
yeah, up and down.
up and down, which is going to
Yeah,
attract you to something unhealthy.
yeah. And I'm working with one person right now that every time things are good in her relationship, she starts spiraling. Like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? And, it took a lot of soul searching to be like, in every other relationship, there was infidelity, there was
Yeah.
lying, there was like deceit, and this is just like fine. So it's
Yeah.
probably not gonna happen this time, and you're looking for it, you're making it into something.
Right. And I feel my heart breaks for her because clearly I know that feeling too. It's like,
Yeah.
even though your mind can sit here and say, wait, different person,
Mm-hmm.
I feel safe with this person, they have reassured me,
Yeah.
that takes time to build that internal
Mm-hmm.
structure for your body to
Yeah.
trust it, because your heart start that's anxiety to a T, right?
Yep.
You're like, logically I'm trying to figure this out, I know this logically, but my body is setting me up for warning because we're like preparing for the pain that we know,
Right.
which is sad.
It
which
is sad.
which I wanted to ask you, are you done with that before I
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
you something else?
yeah.
I'm like curious about your perspective because I think this is interesting with attachments. And this is definitely me because I've looked at my own attachment stuff. And I
Okay.
think it's interesting because I always like get in my head figuring this out. You know how a lot of times we're tracking attachment, we track it back to like childhood, right? Like what kind of family? Any psychologist is usually like, oh, what kind of family did you grow up in? How did your parents show up for you when you were
Yep.
younger? Blah blah blah. And that's how you're seeing like what we just described: secure,
Yep.
anxious, avoidant, whatever. And they study it on babies and how your parents show up for you. But my whole question is, do you think that you can have secure attachment growing up, right?
Hmm.
And then you have a relationship dynamic that's traumatic, abusive, so it changes?
I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing. I've gone from like, oh yeah, I'm secure when I was younger, secure, secure, everything feels secure, nothing really bothers me, to
Hmm.
being in like emotionally abusive relationships that
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. Like everything makes me anxious.
Right.
To then being in another dating or relationship where it's like, I don't give a shit anymore. So I
Yeah.
feel avoidant because it's like, I'm not, it's like you have this, I can even hear my voice right now when I just said it. I'm like, well, I don't want to get screwed over again. So I just not going to care about anything.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, first I started here, then I felt a little this one and this one. And then
Hmm.
I went here and it's like, and I always try to figure out like which one am I am now, because eventually you're always wanting to go back to secure.
Right. Sure.
But it's interesting how when people try to figure this out, there'll be a lot of people, I would say, try to be like, well, I grew up in this family, so this is my attachment style. And I'm like, well,
Right.
also I want to look at what have you been through?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think because you can't say that your childhood attachment is going to translate 100% to an intimate relationship attachment. And I mean, I'm looking back at my own history and I can say that I was much more secure in my initial first couple of relationships because you're fresh out of your family and you're like, I know what I want. I know what's normal. I know, but then you get hurt or something happens or changes and you're like, I just want to be loved. You know, I want to be appreciated and valued. And you're willing to do anything that it takes to have that next person value and appreciate you. So I
Mhm.
think that's where you kind of toe the line sometimes with either I'm going to push you away because this is scary and this is no, I don't know what that is, or I need you at all costs, you know, because I know what being hurt by something I was secure in feels like.
Right.
So that may be where I don't know if, you know, your foundation necessarily changes, where deep down you always have that secure,
Hmm.
you know, tendency. But for sure, you know, especially with trauma and abuse, that's why abuse is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you can be the most self-assured, secure person and person comes in and just rocks your world. You know, who am I? And that's, I think, why ending a lot of these relationships with someone who's not a good match or where there's a power differential is hard.
Right.
Because you're like, dude, I'm not this person. Who am I? You know, why do you have so much control or power over me? People
Right.
change, you know? So for sure, I think so. Is it possible to get back? Yes, but I think it either comes through therapy or it comes through a very significant, open minded, like eureka moment that this shit is not good for me. Or
Right.
you have to reach a breaking point in that relationship where you're like, I am done.
Right.
This is not me anymore. Let's go rediscover that person. And honestly, that's when a lot of people come to therapy because they're like,
Right.
I don't know who I am. What do I like?
Right. Like fresh out of that relationship where you're like, I lost myself.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
And that's like, I feel that we hear that so much now, and I attribute that partially to the lessening taboo on therapy,
Yeah.
which is such a great thing because I can't tell you how many people I've seen, and they're just like, you know, I have all these issues, but like, that's on the side. That's not really why I'm here. Actually, just like help me figure out who I am.
Yeah.
And that's like so sad.
Right. As
Honestly,
soon as you said that, I was like, it's so
breaks my heart.
sad.
Yeah. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know what I like. So,
Yeah. And it's, I think that's the scary part, how much we can lose ourselves in relationships when you
yes.
are so invested in them. Like you're giving up so much that once you get out, you're like, why
I
did I
hate
stop
that.
doing this? Why did I stop hanging out
Yeah.
with these people? Why did I stop doing these things I liked because you're catering to another person?
Yeah.
And it's, I
And
mean,
you and
it's
I
just
have
sad.
both been there. And like,
Hmm.
and we do this for a living. Like, we help
Right.
people get out of that. But like, I understand, like, very deeply. Like,
Mhm.
I disclose that with my clients. Like, girl, I've been where you are,
Right.
you know? So I understand like the heartbreak of like looking in the mirror and being like, I don't know you.
Right.
Why? Oh, because of a person
Right.
who like distanced you from yourself. And that's like, when you see that, I think that that's one of those powerful moments where it's like this relationship either needs to do a massive 180 or I need to get out.
Right. And when I think there was, I have to send this to you. I saw it on Instagram like last night, I think. Some guy had posted this, and it's hard because we're always teaching, like, look at ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And he was talking about some abusive relationships and attachments. And he was like, isn't it always interesting how we go to the girl that's in an abusive relationship and we ask her, like, well, why did you stay? Why did you stay?
Yep.
And like, it's your job to look at, which I agree with. It is our job to look at, like, why am I staying?
Hmm.
But nobody talks about the other side of the person who came in and totally made you false believe they were a good person
Yep.
and manipulated you and did all this stuff to
Hmm.
deceive you into, it's not like they came in like, hey, by the way, I'm going to treat you like shit, and all the red flags were out at the beginning. It's like
Right.
all the green flags were there,
Hmm.
and then you started noticing them once you're already like, this is a good person, this is,
Right.
everything's good, and then you start saying, oh, that's his flag, that's, and then you're already in it.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of women, I think, blame themselves, men too, but a
Yeah.
lot of these situations are women talking about it. Like, how come I didn't see that? Or what's wrong with me? Or how come I didn't leave sooner? But I think the sad part is it's not there all the time. And like
Yeah.
that's the sadness I have with, us women in general is
Yeah.
we blame ourselves for staying, but nobody talks about that beginning stage of the
Mhm.
first year that's really good. That you're like, this is great, and that's when that attachment's really starting.
Right.
Because it's the honeymoon when you're like, oh yeah, like we're doing life together for a year, and
Yeah.
then like bombs start going off and you're like, well,
What
what
happened?
what happened? This whole year was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. But on the positive side, because I think it's easy with relationship and attachment styles to see the things that fail, right? But to highlight, if you have someone, even if they have, look, avoidant attachment people are not bad people, and anxious attachment people are not bad people. It's
Right.
just that's the tendency that they have in a relationship. Is that insurmountable? No, it's not. So if
Hmm.
you are able to be with someone who can recognize where you're coming from and also recognizes if and when they have a style that doesn't match yours or that isn't reinforcing some of the good things and helping you get through your fears, it's possible. It's possible to work through it. Obviously, it would be great if everyone had a secure attachment and all was well, but that's realistically not the case. And that's just because I mean, we're human, we're wounded, we have
Right.
experiences with good and bad people. So, I think if you're self aware enough to recognize, like, I'm doing the inside work and I know that I'm contributing something to the dynamic, maybe it's not really your fault that it's failing either way. It still could be a lot of the other person. But if you can say, hey, you know what? I want to loop my partner into this because this is what I'm seeing from them. I'm working on my part. Can we maybe can we maybe work on the things that I need from you? Maybe I need to communicate more and ask for what I need, and
Hmm.
I'm receptive to your part too.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that which is crazy to me that some couples don't do this.
Hmm.
If you're not asking your partner what kind of relationships they were in before you, I think that's concerning. Some
Yeah.
people are very like, I don't want to know, out of sight, out of mind. To me, I feel like that's
Yeah.
maybe it's judgmental, but it's like immature and it's not healthy if
Hmm.
you're not like, tell me about your ex, tell me about your other relationships. Let me learn from those so I can really know why you are the way you are.
Hmm.
Some couples will not go there, right? But I don't think I can't explain to my partner knows everything about shit I've been through because when something triggers me and comes up for me, I'm like, hey, this might not be anything to do with a behavior you've done. Or maybe you did a behavior and it's not a big deal.
Right.
But remember that thing I told you about? Like my body's just freaking out from like,
Yeah. I mean, you and I have
and
talked about that too.
yeah,
I've said something and you're like, dude, I felt that. And that
mm-hmm,
was from years ago.
yeah. And it's like, I don't know how couples survive when they don't know
Hmm.
or try to at least understand like what the other person's been through because then instantly you can help each other with that, right? And
Right.
without blaming,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to blame my partner when they trigger me because I'm like, hey, I need you to understand that you're not always the problem.
Right.
You do a behavior, I'm triggered from maybe a little bit of what you did, but it feels bigger because of all of this other shit that I've
Yeah.
been through.
Right.
And then it makes it easier to maneuver like, oh, okay, like she just needs extra X
Yeah.
because her mind's in a different place, not from me, but from other stuff she's been through. But if couples don't talk about what's
Hmm.
made their attachment that way, you're so confused. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And it keeps it that surface level fighting where you're not going to be able to help heal that.
Yeah. And I think I mean, it comes down to communication, right? If your current partner is so aversive to discussions about your past or they're so judgmental about your past, you
Yeah.
feel like, I can't tell you about the time that this happened, or I can't share even fun experiences. Like,
Right.
I've someone asked me one time, like in just meeting a group of friends, for example, like, have you ever been on a cruise? And I felt awkward talking about it because my partner at the time hated the fact that I had this experience with a previous partner. So I was like really awkward. Okay, well, I changed the subject because I didn't want to say anything about it. And it was like, that was part of my life, whether it was a good or a bad thing. Like,
Right.
what is that? Why is that
I
a
had a
problem?
life before you.
Exactly. Good and bad.
Right.
I think I respect that a lot about you. because I think you're like you can speak openly in front of your partner and your friends about your life before you met them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like that one time when even when you and I used to do stuff when we lived together a decade ago, um, you feel free to say that, but there were times that I was like, oh, I don't want to bring that up because it's going to start a fight. And when you
Yeah.
have that, it's like, but that is the attachment thing. Like if I bring that up, it's going to start something and then you're going to make a problem and then we're going to
Right.
not be good, you know?
Right. We're gonna be fighting, so I can never really talk about anything that's gonna trigger you.
Right.
So,
Right, which is not healthy. But, it shows how deep this like these styles really do
yeah.
go just for
Hmm.
something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I will say at least before we end,
Yeah.
I do think it's people need to be aware of their attachment and why they are the way they are. It's just going to
Yeah.
help you personally. It's going
Hmm.
to help whatever your next relationship or your
Right.
relationship now is
Yep.
to help you realize why am I like this and not judge it,
Yeah.
but just be open to you can work on it. And if you have a partner who's willing, that's like that relate like toxic relationships traumatize you, right? But
Yeah.
healthy relationships heal you. So
Right.
once if you can do that with a current partner, yeah, it's your work to work on your trauma and your history, but you can't really heal it in a new relationship if that person doesn't help you with it.
Right.
So I
100%.
hope everybody looks at their attachment wounds. We all have them. Me and Gabby have issues too because
Me
we
too.
all have stuff.
And that's why we're here.
That is why we're here.
So yeah, please, if you have any questions about this or you want to have some help from us to identify your style or how it's playing out in your relationship, we would love to give you some insight. So drop your comments
Drop your
and we'll see you next time. Next time is a big episode. It's 40.
Oh yeah, we'll see you next time on 40.
Yay! Okay, guys. Well, we all have stuff.
We all have stuff.